Welcome to AALCO.
Hi everyone, my name is Nick Chen. I'm the director of AALCO Hong Kong Regional Arbitration Center. It gives me a lot of pleasure to present our guests for this Fireside Chat. We're having this monthly Fireside Chat, right? So this Fireside Chat, we have Professor Philip Yang. Please put your hands together for Professor Philip Yang. Professor Yang needs a very little introduction. He is kind of a national treasure, if not a world treasure. He is a leading light in arbitration, in mediation, in maritime, in a lot of different aspects. And also a big brother that a lot of us look up to. And today, he's very generous in sharing his time to guide us on some understanding of arbitration in the West and the East, how that is different, where's the gap. And particular reason why he's here today is he really wanted to share with us how we could capacity build more and better arbitrators. And also, you know, a shout to, a special thanks to our friends from our neighbors downstairs. Dr. Sun, please put your hand together, Dr. Sun. Preparatory Office for the International Mediation Office. And you've heard great news. I'm sure you're all very supportive. If you have friends in that, you could get them to support the refurbishment of the Wan Chai police station. And of course, our friends from OCFMA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, thank you very much. Put your hand together as well. And with people who came in from Guangzhou, from France, and thank you, Dominique and Yolande, and Professor To is here, and Peter, who is a super duper arbitrator as well. We have also young members and friends joining us online. Thank you very much. Now, without further ado, I'll sit down. Professor, can I call you Philip?
Oh, please.
Thank you. He's very kind.
More comfortable, just call me Philip.
Yes, thank you, Philip. I understand you've worked on the ship, and you eventually became a licensed captain. So you are more than qualified to be a maritime lawyer, of course. But how did you get into maritime shipping? And then how did you get into arbitration?
Yes, I do have a very peculiar life in the sense that I didn't join any top law school and come the way up. Actually, I was a seafarer. In those days, of course, job was scarce in Hong Kong. And of course, if you are a seafarer, you can make a lot more money. So I actually went on board as a deck boy. Trainee, you may call it, but the deck boy, without actually going to university and so forth. When I was in shipping, I managed to get my master license, but you sort of feel that what you learn from the books, limited books, 7 or 8 books, you can get through the exam already. But the real life is actually changing. There was a time when technology started to come in. So you start to have satellite navigation and so forth. So all you have learned about look at the stars and try to take a position and so forth, all those knowledge are gone. And the ship became specialized and so forth. Like we learn Morse code by lights and so forth, try to transmit the message. But then VHF came in. Then you realize all of a sudden, if you are a master, quite unlike the old days, you became a truck driver. You just learn the rule of the road, and then you can sail a ship. So actually, I thought with technology catching up, the knowledge, quest for knowledge is diminishing when you have a seafarer life. Then I start to actually look into ways and means that I can come ashore. And I realized that contract law is very important. So I start learning during the seafarer life, seafarer stage of my career. And I'm not the only one. In fact, there are other very well-known ones who did very much the same when they start to coming to the end of their seafaring career. Namely, you get a master ticket. Whether you want to spend your life as seafarer, as a master, captain, and then experienced captain, or you want to come ashore. One of the big names in the old days, which was very much like the path I have walked, is actually Donald Davis. Not a lot of people will remember him, but people in arbitration would know very much the NEMA guideline. The NEMA guideline, right? NEMA actually is Donald Davis' case. He was the sole arbitrator in that case. So it's not surprising there are people coming up this way. And in those days, a lot of the maritime arbitrators are not law students or lawyers and so forth. A lot of them are actually shipbrokers because maritime arbitration actually grew from the Baltic Exchange way of resolving dispute.
Right.
That's why they have two shipbrokers, one on the owner side, the other happen to be on the charterer side. And charterers are usually commodity companies, or even oil companies and so forth, Shell, BP, and so forth. They will try to act as arbitrators. They wear a different hat, try to be impartial and so forth because the law demands it. And then they try to see if they can find a solution. If they can't, then they will appoint a senior member of the Baltic Exchange. He is usually a senior shipbroker and have some knowledge of law and dispute resolution. So that's the way it actually, it is the way that maritime arbitration has grown. And I very much walk the same path. But my luck in life, I consider is a very lucky life. When I came ashore, within 2 years, I worked in a shipping company, decided to actually chartering ships. We call it trumping. That means you start to charter ships out short term to all the people, all the charterers or commodity traders like Cargill, Louis Dreyfus, and so forth, and BP and U.S. Steel and so forth. You start to charter out and fix contract and so forth. Now, those days we have CY Dong and YK Bao and so forth. Right. The traditional way of Hong Kong shipping is to grow, to fix a long-term charter with Japanese for the whole life of the ship. So it's usually a charter up to 15 years and so forth. And with Japanese, you don't have dispute. So I've worked in a shipping company at that time, and they have a dispute, not exactly a dispute. They want to see what the contract looks like 15 years. And it's worth millions and millions of dollars, even in those days. And both the Hong Kong company and the Hong Kong ship owner and the Japanese charterer, Mitsubishi or whatever, they couldn't find the contract. They can't even find the contract. Right. Can you imagine? After they fix a 15 years charter, neither office can find out. So they actually complete the remaining life of the charter without a contract. Nobody knows what has been agreed. So they can always sort things out amicably. So that's the way the Asian people has treated, you may say, arbitration or dispute resolution or contracts, contractual obligation. They never thought about the law. But then when the shipping company, because of various reasons, I think it's the first, if not it's the second company that in Hong Kong move away from this type of business. Roughly with the Japanese. It must be 78 or something like that, 77, 78, move away and start to do chartering. And they get me as the person responsible. And from 4 ships, it turned to 12 ships, which it was a lot of work. every week you have to enter into 3 or 4 contracts because a lot of voyages are quite short and so forth. And then you start to deal with all those experienced traders and so forth. And every charter that ends, even for 2 weeks and so forth, when you do the accounting or even smoothly, the voyage happened to be smoothly, you have always some dispute. So the choice would be you either swallow the loss because BP insists, otherwise we go to arbitration, so you back down. But very soon we realize we can't do that, and I'm of course tempted to learn more. So I start to actually arbitrate in London. London and New York for that. At that time, it was also New York. So that's why I think I have, at the very early stage when most Hong Kong shipping company doesn't involve at all, I was exposed to quite a number of arbitration and also contract. Start to realize how serious is contract and how dangerous it can be. So I pick up more and more law. I pick up law mainly by doing the professional courses, Charter Insurance Institute, Charter Shipbroker, which you have Part 1, Part 2 exam, and Part 1 is always general law, right? So I do this, and I thought it actually helped me throughout my life in going through this way. But I thought it's good to share with all the friends and so forth, because you look at China, for example, you will find very few students actually can go to Cambridge, Oxford, or UCL. How do they learn general law and develop a good concept of international contractual law and all this evidence and so forth? I think they can consider my path, which would allow China to do that, because China will have to train a massive young people into the knowledge of international law. They have been emphasizing that for a number of years already. In fact, more than just 5 years. In fact, I've been in China for quite a long time, 4 decades. They have always keen to learn the foreign law, and I thought my experience is perhaps a good illustration of how you can achieve.
As I understand, group CEOs, general counsels of state-owned enterprises in China often look to you for advice, and very senior officials will pull you aside and say, could you train this room full of CEOs? What is your advice and take on, or if you do a crash course, normally something that takes 2 days, if we now only have an hour, what would you, maybe 3 top things that come to mind that you would like these CEOs to understand?
Yes, I do now talk to a lot of the state-owned enterprises because I have courses organized by, I don't know how it's called in English, 国资委. You know what I mean? Yeah. In Beijing, I've done contract, and I'm actually going up there on probably 22nd February after the Chinese New Year, and we'll talk about the remaining courses. What I usually do is, of course, I want to make sure they have to spend some time to know the principles of, for example, contract law. You start with formation of contract, and then construction of contract, then performance, first repudiation, waiver, estoppel, and so forth, all the way to damages. How damages are calculated, which itself is very complicated. We all know that. So they have
so the equity in the common law versus civil law system. Yeah.
Yes. So in that case, I think China dedicate a lot of effort and money to education. In fact, it has been going on 40 years. You look at China, they have more law schools than all the world adding together.
Is that right? How many?
I'm not sure. I didn't make the count. But you look at China, virtually every university will have law school, right?
I know Hong Kong has 3. London has about 98. But China is how many?
Must be hundreds, 200-300.
Wow.
Right? Must be 200-300. So they have more law school than any, and look at the seminars and courses, short courses China is running virtually every day. Virtually every day. If you go to London, which you are familiar, or New York, you don't have that many courses, or short courses along, or law school for that matter. So actually, I think China gave a lot of effort and dedication. But I always feel that they tend to be piecemeal. They pick up a lot of information, which nowadays you can get it from the website. What they need to develop is the mindset, which is the general law. For example, law of contract will give you a very comprehensive, with a very complete and consistent, certain, and predictable concept of issues.
But
right?
in some ways, of course, China has a civil code with a contract law chapter. If you look at Hong Kong, the laws of Hong Kong doesn't even have, an contract law ordinance, because we don't have one. So, in a way, it takes some more time to learn something that's not written, not completely written.
I agree. It takes time, but
different
of course,
people teach different things too.
yes, but they can walk the way faster.
True.
Bearing in mind nowadays the world is so competitive, the window is actually very narrow. So they can work a lot faster. And in that sense, if you talk about the civil code, first of all, the first legislation in China with regard to contract law is 1999. So it's pretty recent. And now you have it in the civil code. The problem with statute is always that you can only put down some general principles. How to apply to the real life, different cases, different facts, different arguments, is quite another thing. So in that case, China doesn't have the time to develop its own. In that sense, it makes more reason that they should pick from the outside world and try to learn the law, such as the common law. We have it in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong, of course, is in line with UK, Singapore, and many other places. That makes more important to do that because China hasn't had the time to develop yet.
I guess as a practical matter, 140 countries out of 193 has China as its major trading partner. So we are net exporting a lot of things. So maritime law needs a lot of expertise. But what have you been seeing so far? And also these days, where are the ship owners located? Used to be in the West, or where are they now?
Oh, when it comes to shipping, yes, shipping is very important. You always remember in the contract, it's not just ship owner. You have the other side, who are the commodity trader and the oil companies and so forth.
Yeah. So
actually, a large slice of what we call international business or international trade has to do with shipping. It's very. It's not just charter parties or bills of lading. It also includes all the international contracts of sale. We call that shipment contract, CIFFOB, because somebody has to do the shipping, whether it's the seller or the buyer. So therefore, they must know shipping. And they also go to maritime arbitration or shipping arbitration. So we always have one commodity trader or oil company and one ship owner. That's what we usually do when we resolve disputes. So in that case, I think China is, if you talk about the East and the West, you will find that the hardware, whether the volume of trade, the shipping, or ship owners, or the shipbuilding or ship repairer, you count it. All areas of shipping, in fact, China is number one or number two. I think most are number one.
Right.
Whether it's shipbuilding, the number of ships that are owned by China, the ship owner, the largest P&I club China PNI Club, which happened to...
Oh, what is PNI
issue.
Club? Because some members
Yes.
from Zoom might not be familiar.
The PNI Club, long history, 150 years. We all have to insure liability insurance. We know we bought a car, you can forget about physical insurance, but you have to purchase liability insurance.
No insurance, you can't ship, right?
Yeah, you can't, that's
drive,
right.
yeah.
Ship owner, it's also the same. If you don't have liability insurance, a lot of port would not let you go in. More importantly, it is very complicated because you are talking about liability worldwide. Every country is different. Every port you call, you have a different liability regime. So PNI Club, you will find that ship owner traditionally, 150 years ago, they can't insure. No underwriters or insurer is willing to insure liability, just the physical loss of the ship, whether it's war risk or marine risk, but not liability. So if the force, you can't purchase it from Lloyd's. So what they did, ship owner, is to pull together to give liability insurance. Once you have a problem, a liability, oil pollution, which costs billions of dollars and so forth, all the ship owner will actually bail out, equal share. And therefore, because you don't have PNI Club insurance, you actually cannot trade. So whether it's Russian, whether it's Ukraine ships and so forth, they all insure with the PNI Club and they all pull together. So China has to also do the same. And the club, they have a very complicated arrangement. They have the PNI Club pool, 15 PNI Club also. When you have a claim which exceeds a certain amount, it will go to the pool, share amongst the pool. That means you share amongst every ship owner. And then if it goes higher, it goes to the market. Lloyd's will go excess liability insurance. And then if you exceed the excess liability insurance, it will go back to the pool. You know, that kind of very complicated arrangement, because liability can be huge, huge. So that's the way it's handled. Now, when it comes to liability insurance, they handle all the litigation, all the arbitration, and so forth. So the PNI Club tends to be very sophisticated people working there. And in China, because of the huge rise of tonnage, we have virtually, I think, the world's largest, if not but certainly one of the largest PNI Club, and that is based in Shanghai, China PNI Club. Now you find out that the West is actually not holding the edge on the hardwares already. Right. It's all coming to Asia. Apart from China, you have Korea, Japan, and so forth, right? But the software is still firmly in the West, particularly London. So you find all the ship owners or shipping organizations like IMO, International Maritime Organization. You find all the PNI Club, International Global PNI Club, all these shipping-related institutions, and particularly, which we are concerned, is maritime arbitration, is now firmly in London's hand. London, if you talk about maritime arbitration, I would say easily 90% of the world international maritime arbitration cases go to London. It's even more dominating than when I grew up. When I actually grew up in shipping arbitration, that means 1978, 1980. In fact, New York got a fair share. People say very rough, 30%. London get 50%. Paris get another 10%. Hamburg get 5%, and Hong Kong gets also 5%. That's sort of actually proportion. But over the years, London did very well. And they managed to wipe out all competitors.
How did they manage?
I think good people. Okay, they also do publicity, move around, very much like Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, doing some education training and so forth, issue newsletter and so forth. And of course, also it's the growth of English law.
Right.
English law, including maritime law, has get into prominence. Therefore, when every contract, in maritime contract, you always stipulate English law, sale of goods and so forth. And you will find conventions like CISG has actually no place in international.
Convention of International Sale Goods.
Yes, because you look at all the English contract, GAFTA, phosphor contract, those standard contract, it always say that English law to apply, and CISG is excluded. CISG is excluded.
In the contract itself.
In the contract itself. You will find that the two lawyers are always common law background, English lawyers or Hong Kong lawyers or barrister. And they will always agree, sometimes before the pleading, commencement of arbitration, sometimes before the hearing. Oh, we have both parties agreed to use English law or Hong Kong Sale of Good Ordinance, but not CISG. So they change direction. So I never get around to gain a lot of experience with CISG. I learned more CISG from the Wismut than in my real case, cases. So that is actually the dominance of the West, or more specifically England, London, when it comes to the maritime sector.
And Hong Kong also recently joined CISG, is seated in Hong Kong as well. You are Vice Chairman of the BIMCO Documentary Committee. In some of your more recent standard form bills of lading documents, is it true that the team selected to use Singapore rather than London or Hong Kong? And if so, why?
Yes. That was actually also quite interesting. It was something like 13, 14 years ago. I think I still remember it was BIMCO. As you know, we have every nation. Hong Kong is an area.
Again, what does BIMCO stand for?
BIMCO is the largest shipowner organization, largest shipowner. But it's not just the size that matter. But BIMCO, for hundreds of years, over 100 years. Now, I want to say is that the BIMCO is, from the very early days, start to make standard contracts. Make standard contracts, and some of these contracts are most commonly used. One I mentioned is GenCon. The other one is bill of lading. If you go to the bank, average bank that deals with documentary credit, like letter of credit, LC, the most common form they will come across is the congen bill, the bill of lading. I think over 50, probably 70%, all these contracts will be actually come up by BIMCO. BIMCO. The full name is Baltic and International Maritime Council. Now, that is the name. So it's the largest shipowner organization, but it's not the size that matters, it's because the standard form that it has produced. Now, not only shipping-related contracts, but even ship finance. Ship finance contract, which the banks were heavily involved, as well as, for example, offshore. Offshore contract. A lot of offshore contracts, important offshore contracts like supply terms, supply time contract. Those were also formed by BIMCO. And I happened to serve in that committee, documentary committee for a long time, rising to become the vice chairman.
It's quite a feat for a Chinese person to rise that high.
Not at all, actually. It's just that I'm interested in those words because I learned a lot. And then about 13, 14 years ago, at that time, all the standard contracts has an arbitration clause.
Yeah.
And the arbitration clause will be London and New York, two places.
Right.
And then German delegation came up saying that, oh, New York arbitration, I haven't seen that for a long time. Last 10 years ago, yes, it come across from time to time, but nowadays it's all London. And perhaps we remove New York to avoid confusion. Just now, and the New York delegation, of course, opposed very strongly. And later on, because we hold meeting every half year, the next meeting, then I realized that America has did a lot to pressurize BIMCO and so forth, politically and many other aspects. So the tune has changed, saying that, oh, in that case, we don't exclude New York. But Asia become more and more important for obvious reason. So if we have to leave New York there, why not we stick to the reality and try to find a seat for Asia. Now, and they form a subcommittee to do that. And I was the chairing. I chaired this arbitration subcommittee. And there were 4 actually bids tried to be included in the seat. One is actually Shanghai. The Chinese delegation want Shanghai to be in. And the other is actually Seoul. And the other one is Singapore and Hong Kong. So 4 places. And the first meeting I held with my subcommittee of around, I think 7 or 8 people from Turkey, Greece, and Norway, and America, and of course English. They have already decided, they have already said, well, we exclude Shanghai and we exclude Seoul because these 2 places are not common law jurisdiction. And all the shipping contracts, BIMCO's contract, has the proper law of English. And whenever we form the contract, we make the contract, we have any doubt, we get a counsel opinion and complete the form, standard form. You know, so it's completely one way towards common law. And therefore, it's inappropriate for civil law to actually be the seat. So, but I cannot speak, I cannot tell the outsider about it. So eventually it was only arguing between Singapore and Hong Kong, which place to choose. And at that time, there were some people speak highly of Hong Kong because Hong Kong has a lot more maritime arbitration than Singapore, and also expertise. What was hesitant is that the Chinese delegate support Shanghai. And I can't tell the delegation why not support Hong Kong. Hong Kong is part of China because Shanghai is out in any event. I can't tell this. So eventually they thought that is politically sensitive because Chinese delegation support Shanghai, not Hong Kong. And therefore they eventually pick Singapore. You may say it's picking of Singapore by default.
It's not because Hong Kong is weaker.
No. And when I returned to Hong Kong, Teresa knew about it and say, you're the chairman, you should try to hold another year or 2. We can lobby to China and lobby to COSCO, because the delegation mainly from COSCO shipping, to change that to support Hong Kong, they will get it. Then I say, unfortunately, we work in a very democratic way. When they have voted, it's not for me to as a chairman to hold back another 1.5 years. It won't work. But of course, later on, when I already stepped down, we managed to get Hong Kong in as well.
Yep.
But all I want to say is that this is not the end of the world. Certainly not the end. When the standard form put New York, for example, New York's caseload keep diminishing because they don't have experts, maritime law experts. They don't develop in the maritime law, but it's England which is developing. Now, in Hong Kong, for example, you will find that because the ship owner and the charterers, they are very knowledgeable people, businessmen. They are they will change the venue. So if you put Hong Kong in, or you put Singapore in, or you put London in, they will still think about the seat. Which seat I really prefer. It's not like they just let the standard form dictate their fate.
Right.
They will make a choice. So you will find Hong Kong still got a good number of cases. And those cases, in fact, mainly come from mainland. Mainland China. In London, I talked with the London Maritime Arbitrators friends. They keep telling me for the last 10 years, it's almost consistent that 50% of the London cases are China-related.
What if both parties were from China? Do they still go to London?
Oh, yeah, oh, definitely. I know
Is it time they come to Hong Kong? Come more to Hong Kong, I mean.
In that, now, to achieve that is, of course, firstly, we have to train up more expertise, willing to do maritime cases and so forth. We also have maritime lawyers. In the old days, most of the big names, good lawyers, good barrister, for example, or shipping law firms, they do shipping. But nowadays, it's not considered to be too lucrative. And therefore, you find Clifford Chance, Herbert Smith, and so forth. They all have a strong shipping department, but they all close shop. If you talk about barrister, it's the same. Geoffrey Ma used to be a very well-known maritime barrister. My first case in hearing, in fact,
former Chief Justice.
Yes, the former Chief Justice Geoffrey Ma appeared before me. One side, the other side was, I think, English QC. So that was my first hearing, something like 35 years ago.
Right.
Now, so those days, a lot of the well-known peoples are maritime, because those days, before globalization, maritime is the only international business, international trade and shipping. So we have a competent team of maritime people. But now, of course, in Hong Kong, we have less, but still we have a lot more than Singapore. For example, whether it's a well-known arbitrator or maritime lawyers. And I think Hong Kong has to consider to develop more people. And then you will find the ship owner and the charterer, they wouldn't give too much attention to the standard form saying Singapore or London and so forth. They will cross out and put Hong Kong. And it happens all the time.
Do you see a role for AALCO to play?
If you talk about administration of arbitration, because maritime arbitration is well known for ad hoc. It has gone on for hundreds of years, in the Baltic.
Right.
And the ad hoc at that time is so influential that we have 300 years of English Arbitration Act legislation from 1698 all the way to 1950. You will find 1950 there are provisions in the legislation, the English Arbitration Act, which non-maritime people will never understand. For example, it states the English arbitration system is 2 arbitrators plus umpire. And there were friends asking me, what is an umpire? Actually, it's a Baltic, the Baltics practice.
Right.
And even more drastic is that you go back to 1950. There's a provision in Section 10 or something like that, 10.5 or it says, even if the contract says 3 arbitrators or other number of arbitrators, in England, it is still each party appoint 1. And then if they come to disagreement, then you appoint an umpire. So in another word, you don't have anything called freedom of contract or party autonomy. Even if you write 3 arbitrators, it will be conducted in a way which is the way that maritime arbitration is conducted. So now all this changed when it comes to 1996, 1996. And therefore, that provision is gone. So the maritime people, what they do is, okay, the law has changed. It's not catered for our way of arbitrating. So they put it in the rule, the London Maritime Arbitrator Rule, LM rule, saying that even if you say 3 arbitrator or other number of arbitrator, it is 2 plus umpire, or not 2 plus third arbitrator. And in Hong Kong, we adopt the same. In the HK Maritime Arbitration Group, we use the same rule as LMAA. So that is how maritime arbitration unique from other areas of arbitration.
Anyway, maybe because of time, should we take some questions from the floor, see if there's any burning questions.
Sure.
Thank you, Professor. Any questions anyone have? Sorry.
Oh, there's one.
想要请教，就是那现在我们除了刚刚提到的一个格局的变化之外，然后我们还可以如何为更好的服务我们“一带一路”的这个战略建设，然后提供一些人才培养上的支持。
Grooming of expertise and so forth. Yes, I think it is most important in this part of the world. It's not just mainland China. It's in this part of the world. We are capturing a lot of the activities, hardware, business, and so forth. If we do not use the same chance to develop our soft skill, firstly, it's quite dangerous. It's quite dangerous. You may not be able to protect the hardware if you don't have the software. You have to go hand in hand. And secondly, of course, it also gives a golden opportunity for Asia to develop. And I'm actually of the same thinking with a lot of other people in Asia. I just quote one, for example. I've been talking with V.K. Raja. And we share the same mind. V.K. Raja gave a fireside chat how many? 3 months ago, 4 months ago, something like that. He emphasized, V.K. Raja, we must groom Asian arbitrator. Now, this will help us to develop expertise and so forth. So I'm of the same mind. Now, the only way you can do that is, of course, to teach more people in expertise. We do have a lot of things to do in order to achieve that. For example, China. One of the issues which I keep saying is that I think, firstly, the university training, which has to focus more on common law, the general law, which I had mentioned, like evidence, contract, and so forth. Now,
comparative law,
especially contract law. Contract will go along with other property law, trust law, equity, and so forth.
Right.
So it's not just a few general concepts in the civil code that is important. And I think the education will have to focus more on the international system. You may say common law based because of the history of English law, but it's actually the law we developed in globalization of 50 years. You will find international arbitration, a lot of the soft laws, like IBA rule of evidence, which we use widely in arbitration. You can't say it's common law or civil law. In fact, the committee who actually make up the IBA rule of evidence, I think at that time, eight people from Europe and 7 from common law jurisdiction, including 1 from Hong Kong, isn't it? So you can't say it's common law or it's civil law. They just pick what is the best. We all actually look for the best practice when it comes to globalization, best practice. So I think it's very important that Chinese university will try to get this system, this knowledge into training of their students. And also there are other things which cannot produce, or at least cannot produce as quickly as one would wish the international expertise. And that is, for example, the arbitration institution in China. They have a lot more cases than any other institution. I think Beijing Arbitration Commission has got 8,000 plus cases in 2022. I don't have the 23 figures yet. But you look at ICC, it's only 800, right? 8,000 versus 800. Then you would have fought with that kind of exposure and practice. Very soon you will have very top arbitrators coming out, right? But actually it's not the case because the system is actually needs to be improved. For example, there is no procedural law in China. Because the courts delegate the interlocutory management, or supervising.
You mean in relation to administering arbitration?
Yes, administer supervising court, right? Supervise the proceeding and so forth. That is delegated to the institution, arbitration. And some institutions do it better than the other. That is already one problem, which is inconsistency, right? The other one is it's not law, it's not procedural law, and it's not open, it's not transparent. So if you arbitrate in China, no matter how much cases you have done, you don't know what is the right thing to do or wrong thing to do, and how to solve practical problems.
You mean Mainland China?
Yes.
I mean, if you were to look at, you talked about some big firms closing off their maritime practice, but at the same time, I think you're still saying, despite there seems to be less work for international firms in maritime business, less profitable, but you're on the other hand, you're supporting that we should do more capacity building, training more arbitrators. Where's the cake? Where's the pie? Where we're growing it? And what's Hong Kong's role? As you see the gap between how the West practice certain things and the East practice certain things.
I see. A lot of the firms that are leaving China, mainland China, or actually cut down the size, those are international firms, which would be England and American, especially American firms. We all know that. That has something to do, I feel, that politics.
Geopolitics.
Geopolitics. It has more to do. Now, if China can overcome this crisis at this very difficult time, in fact, internationally, not just China, but okay, let's talk about China's crisis. If we can get over, I'm sure a lot of firms will come back. People will come back once China can stand on its own. So in that case, and there are other reasons also that, for example, China tried to use less international firm, and the accounting firm, we all know that, right? It's actually, they discourage.
So like U.S. buy American kind of concept.
Yes, yes, because
supportive of local.
Exactly, we all having problem now with disconnecting each other and so forth. How it will lead to, I don't know. But if good time comes back, it will be all over. And I think the artist or the important artist also is always in bad time in life try to survive. Then you will come back much stronger and bigger. That is what I hope, whether it's individually or whether China as a country or even the whole of Asia.
So overcoming the risk of decoupling or de-risking, whatever they label it, the crisis that caused by that.
Yes.
Economic, impact, right?
Yes, I think yes.
What role can Hong Kong play?
Hong Kong
arbitrators play.
Now, Hong Kong is not in a geopolitical position confronting China. It's certainly beyond that, right? And in Hong Kong, you will find that it is the only common law jurisdiction which has already, and we can promote more, real international arbitrators and lawyers and who can handle a case anywhere. In Hong Kong, right? I sit in arbitration all over the places.
Even for parties who are unrelated to Hong Kong.
Yes, unrelated. Like maritime cases, I easily accept any year. I accept more London cases than Hong Kong cases. If you look at China, they have so much capacity in terms of trade, and it's not going down. And we hope it will never go down, right?
Strong productivity,
if it's number 2 or
trade.
number 1, it doesn't matter. The capacity, they need that kind of service, which is lacking in China at the moment. Even no matter how fast they grow, and in the right track they grow, Hong Kong will always have an edge because of the historical environment and so forth. So I think I think there are a lot more people now in Hong Kong is doing that, like
Hong Kong
Hong
Bar
Kong Bar, for
Association,
example.
you see the logo here, Law Society
Yes,
Hong
the
Kong.
bar and
Very supportive, thank them.
all I know is the recent courses that I have been involved in China, which are very high-level courses, like the Ministry of Justice, the courses and so forth. The Hong Kong Bar is always heavily involved. So this can show the value of Hong Kong. And that can show China going hand in hand. Perhaps, I wouldn't say lead China, but going hand in hand to actually internationalize and really learn the trick of foreign law, which is the globalization, the system of law, law of contract, law of evidence, law of arbitration, and related the litigation work. Like in China, very few people would know how to apply for a freezing injunction and so forth. But in Hong Kong, it's a piece of cake. We've been doing that every day, right? So I think Hong Kong has an edge. We always say we have an edge in finance and
The 8 centers, including legal services.
Yes, and I think it's still the case. It's still the case if we use it properly.
So lots of opportunities for lawyers who want to go into arbitration, you think? Or doesn't have to be lawyer, but going to arbitration.
Like maritime is one. Maritime, okay, I accept compared to general litigation or arbitration, it's not that much money, because that has also to do with history. The P&I Club press the fees.
Press the hourly rates.
Hourly rates. That's why I actually charge to rate. Maritime cases, I charge a bit less. And general litigation, general arbitration, I charge more. So it's actually, because I want to stay competitive with London. And London, actually, the P&I Club say you cannot charge more than a number, say $4,500 per hour. So that's why shipping has always been the less lucrative side of business. And therefore, but the volume is huge. Particularly, China is the number one. It has to be number one, even if America is on top. But when it comes to shipping and commodities trading and international sale of goods, I don't think America can beat China, right? The volume that is involved. So a lot of disputes come out. We have the hardware, so it's quite easy for the Chinese authority, or perhaps even Chinese companies, they realize it's not that advantageous to go to London nowadays. It's expensive. Flying is expensive. And there are other problems like data protection. Now it's also a big problem.
And like
for arbitrators.
Pirates too, right?
Yeah.
Affecting
shipping. Yes,
yeah.
Affecting shipping as well. Data protection. Some of the evidence they cannot produce to London and so forth. And therefore, all these things add up together. It's a question of really spreading the knowledge, spreading the news. And if they get back 10%, or 15% from London, especially those cases that would not involve outsider. Outsider, I mean people from Greece, from Norway, and so forth, because that you will have to convince the other party to abandon London, right? But if there are so many cases just between themselves, if they come to Hong Kong, we have cases that will feed 1,000 arbitrator, or many. Perhaps you charge a lower hourly rate, but you can still live very comfortably, right?
Well, and younger lawyers who are not, as necessarily focused on fees, they could do more of it.
They can do more.
Now, we have a question from online audience. Does AALCO plan to run any accreditation course? It so happened that we've been discussing with Professor Yang, so we're hoping that in the future we'll be running some accreditation course. And you'll get to see Professor Yang again. Please join me in thanking Professor Yang again. Now, it's been very insightful, and I also want to share AALCO if you go on the AALCO website, you see we are inviting more people to join our panel of arbitrators. So if you haven't joined our panel of arbitrators, please fill up the form, and we will process it as soon as possible. I look forward to you joining our AALCO family. Any other questions? Last question, one from Mr. To. Oh, and sorry, you had your hand up before. Mr. To first, yes, Professor.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. Sorry.
So
Thank you very much. That's very insightful. I just want to ask one question. Many institutions do have rules that talk about nationality. And this is something that basically whether you think is a good thing or bad thing, because this will affect the people you appoint as arbitrators, especially if it's a mainland Chinese party against, say, a Japanese party, then you can't really appoint the chair as a Japanese or a Chinese. You have to appoint from a different jurisdiction. Likewise, if it's a sole arbitrator, you cannot appoint it from the same jurisdiction as well. Now, would this basically hinder the development of Asian arbitrators? Because given that more and more cases are coming from Asia, so that's why we will not be seeing more chairmen who are Asian. Just what are your thoughts on this?
Yes, that is a very, very important question for Hong Kong. From what I know, the nationality rule was first incorporated in ICC. Now, ICC is very different animal altogether. It is not based in New York, it's not based in London, it's not based in Hong Kong like LCIA, AAA, or HKRAC, right? So they are truly international organizations, and they have a lot of sensitive case. For example, the World Bank and IMF would support projects and require ICC arbitration. So they will deal a lot with the sovereign, for example. So it can be very, I've been sitting in the ICC court before. I've seen some of those cases which I helped to scrutinize, very sensitive cases. Now, in that case, it's very important that they find a panel of arbitrators who are really third nationality, because it can be a case with Brazil versus France. Perhaps not both sovereigns, but at least one large company in France and so forth. So they have to make sure that the tribunal is very neutral. It's very neutral. But then in other institutions, in Asia, for example, SIAC did not actually have the nationality rule. Unless I'm wrong, I understand there is no nationality rule. But nonetheless, in their practice, they will still exercise some judgment. For example, you have a really sensitive case, like those cases which I mentioned. They will always make sure that the tribunal, at least the chairman, you can't control the party-appointed arbitrator, but at least the chairman, it will be neutral on the face of it, But HKIC, we know that it has the nationality rules, but Hong Kong, HKIC is a completely different animal with ICC. In Hong Kong, how many cases from mainland China? I think probably 80%, 70%, whatever. They are all China related. Now, if you cannot appoint the chairman or sole arbitrator, who shares the same nationality with the parties, right? Then people like me, or probably you, or any other person who did a lot of HKIC arbitration, or David Fong, I think you will find that my experience with HKIC arbitration are virtually all appointed by party. Only party has a choice; they can appoint me. But I will never be appointed by HKIC, and actually, or as a sole arbitrator or chairman.
In a case where
China is involved.
A Chinese party is
yes.
involved.
I remember in the old days when they introduced it, I've argued, can you exclude Hong Kong? They say, no, Hong Kong is part of China. But come on. For example, I hold a British passport because of historical reason. You talk about nationality. How do you define nationality? If Hong Kong holding British passport or Canadian passport or Australian passport would still consider as Chinese, I call it racism. So I don't think it's right. I think Hong Kong is a completely different animal with ICC. And Hong Kong should do the same as IAC. But in sensitive case, make your own judgment to make sure you appoint a neutral chairman or sole arbitrator. But a lot of Hong Kong cases are Chinese company with Chinese. And that's why I remember one judge told me, Hong Kong High Court judge, when we discussed about this issue, he actually said, oh, Hong Kong is strange. I can be a judge in the High Court, but I cannot be an arbitrator in HKRAC.
Oh.
So how can you pull the two together?
Let the judge know, AALCO doesn't have the nationality exclusion rules.
Yes. I agree it is important in some cases, but you cannot make it a standard rule. In that case, Chris, you asked the question, and you have been doing a fabulous job for the course, the arbitration course, which I treasure so much, the City University program leader. But all these years, you may have heard the students saying that I've learned, and I learned hard, but I cannot actually have any arbitration work because I'll never get appointed by HKRAC. Of course they cannot, unless they are not Hongyi or they are not mainland Chinese. These two type of people are excluded by the nationality rule. Bearing in mind we have 80% cases from China. It doesn't make sense.
Please, appreciate it.
For the, since we know that the Chinese arbitration law is doing an amendment and we have a legislator here, what are the most important features they need to look at in order to ensure that China will develop to be an advanced and friendly arbitral country? Put this.
I understand there are several issues. Again, I won't go very far. But one of the issues is, of course, whether to allow ad hoc arbitration. Now, I always feel that you should allow ad hoc, but of course, China has developed into a peculiar way in this 40 years, so it's not that easy to just open ad hoc arbitration. Ad hoc arbitration, like in maritime arbitration, everybody gets used to ad hoc arbitration for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years ago, you don't have any arbitral institution like ICC or HKRAC. It's all recent globalization, the products, you may say, right? So in that case, ad hoc arbitration exists much longer. But ad hoc arbitration is not just let it go. You can do whatever you like. The arbitrator is the master of the procedure, so you can do whatever you like. We know that there is a supervising court, and the court will watch very carefully. If you don't behave properly, you will be removed. In Hong Kong court, I've been tried to remove a few times because one party was not happy because I did not give the order, for example, to disclose document. I did not give the order to allow a particular witness to appear and so forth. All these things actually has been done by the court. And the court developed the procedural law. In arbitration, we have substantive law and procedural law. And what can be seen by the outside world is the procedural law. That's why the procedural fairness is more important than substantive fairness. We all know that because who knows whether the decision is right or wrong, right? But procedurally, you can see it. So you will find people judging the competence of any seat. They look at the procedural law and how the supervisory court has been doing. And Hong Kong has a good reputation because all along we developed a very credible, with strong reason. You can always make a decision, but it's the reason that matter. But now we have Mimi Chen. We all know that a lot of her cases are actually being cited. But in China, they don't have procedural law. The court doesn't supervise. They leave to the institution to supervise. CTAC, Beijing Arbitration Commission. So it's not apparent to outside world how they have decided. And I'm sure there will be inconsistencies between different institutions. Now, that gives a problem. How can the outside world be more credible with arbitration if they cannot see the procedural law? They cannot know how an arbitration is being conducted in China. So nowadays with ad hoc arbitration, you have bigger problem. You don't have administration to look at. And now you will find some of the very strange things. I think it's CTAC. They start to write down or publish ad hoc arbitration rules. And then they give the institutions several functions. If you look at those rules, you start to wonder, what's the difference between the two? So that doesn't make sense, right? So actually, if you want to develop real ad hoc arbitration, you have to give the power to the court. And the court will actually develop a comprehensive, because China got so many cases, very quickly it can develop into a good system and give the outside world confidence, a system of procedural law. And that is something which I'm advocating. I'm not sure how successful it will be because it is actually a very important the change, a switch from the previous system of China. But at least I try to throw the idea, and people will think of it. If not this amendment, then in the next amendment. And there are always opportunity that different areas like Shanghai or Nanhai, they have the rule to, they have the power to make some rules for their own. They will actually do something. Now, if they do something, it's still as good as the whole China develop a procedural law. If you have a procedural law in Shanghai, then at least we know, that's how procedural the irregularities are being sought out. And they will give arbitrator and lawyers guidance as to what is the right thing to do and what is the wrong thing to do.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Professor Yang again. With a small token of thanks, from AALCO to Professor Yang. 多謝，非常感激。Thank you, friends, for joining online as well. Thank you. Have a good night. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for coming. Stay healthy.